You know that feeling when you're about to overhaul your workspace, and you've got a half dozen options on the table, an old tower that takes up the whole desk, a laptop that's always on the move, and that sleek little box you saw on a forum that promises desktop-class power in a size that could sit on a bookshelf? I was in that exact spot last month, scrolling through Reddit threads and trying to convince myself that I didn't need another bulky machine. My biggest worry was ending up with a mini PC that looked impressive on paper but choked on anything beyond a spreadsheet. That's why I spent a weekend actually testing a few models, reading every spec sheet, and watching how they behaved under real workloads before I made a call. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The MINISFORUM AIX1 Pro 370 is the one that kept popping up in those discussions. It's built around an AMD Ryzen 9 HX 370 processor with 12 cores and 24 threads, paired with AMD Radeon 890M graphics, 64 GB of DDR5 RAM, and a 1 TB SSD already installed. On paper, that's a lot of horsepower for a device that's roughly the size of a paperback. The real question, though, is whether that hardware translates into a smooth day-to-day experience when you're using it for the things you actually need: coding, video editing, running multiple monitors, or just keeping a bunch of browser tabs open while you work from home. First off, let's talk about space. The X1 Pro sits on a desk footprint that's about 66 inches, so you can actually fit it beside a monitor without feeling cramped. That's a huge win if you're trying to keep a clean setup or you have limited desk real estate in a home office. The metal chassis feels solid, and the front panel has a single power button with an LED that can be set to pulse and sync with your system status. A nice, low-key visual cue that you're not missing any notifications. Now, ports. This is where the X1 Pro really starts to show why it can replace a full-size tower for many people. You get a full suite: one HDMI 2.1, one DisplayPort, and two additional video outputs that use the same DP/HDMI standard, meaning you can easily hook up 3 screens without needing a docking station. For me, that meant a 27-inch 4K monitor for design work, a 24-inch 1080p screen for email and chat, and a third screen for reference material, all driven directly from the mini PC. The dual 2.5 gigabits Ethernet ports are a pleasant surprise. They let you either bond for higher bandwidth or keep a wired connection for each monitor without relying on a single port splitter. On the USB side, there are 4 USB 4 ports that double as Thunderbolt-compatible connections, so you can plug in fast external SSDs, a capture card for streaming, or even a high-speed card reader without needing a hub. Connectivity isn't just wired. The X1 Pro supports Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 5.4. So if you're on a modern router, you'll get lower latency and higher throughput than a typical Wi-Fi 6 device. I tested the Wi-Fi 7 connection by streaming 4K HDR video while simultaneously uploading a large file to the cloud, and the connection stayed steady, with no buffering or dropouts. That said, if your network equipment is still on Wi-Fi 5, you won't see the full benefit, but the device will gracefully fall back to the older standard. Thermals and noise are often the deal breakers for many PCs. The X1 Pro uses a dual-fan cooling solution that's tucked behind the motherboard, and because the Ryzen 9 HX processor is a mobile-class chip, its power envelope is lower than a desktop-grade Ryzen 9. In my tests, the fan spun up to a moderate 2,500 revolutions per minute under a sustained stress test with Blender rendering and a few browser tabs open, reaching about 68°C on the CPU. That's comfortably within safe limits, and the noise level stayed around 35 dB, quiet enough that you could have a conversation across the room without hearing it. Of course, if you push the GPU hard with a game like Cyberpunk 2077 at high settings, the fans will get louder, but that's expected. You're not buying a silent gaming rig here. Performance-wise, the combination of the 12-core CPU and the Radeon 890M makes the X1 Pro more than capable for most light creative tasks. I ran Photoshop with a 30-layer file, edited 1080p video clips in DaVinci Resolve, and compiled a Go project with multiple modules, all without noticeable lag. The 64 GB of DDR5 RAM eliminates any memory bottleneck, and the 1 TB NVMe SSD provides lightning-fast load times. For anyone who needs a machine that can handle multiple VMs for development or run a local server while still being responsive on the desktop, this is a solid fit. One of the standout features is the built-in Copilot support. It's not a full-blown AI that writes your code for you, but it does integrate with Microsoft's Copilot ecosystem, offering contextual suggestions in supported apps. If you're already using Microsoft 365, you'll notice those AI-driven autocomplete prompts in Word and Outlook. It's a nice,